really left where we pride ourselves in teaching really you to be you is the institution of higher education. Higher education is precisely about individuality. It's about you. It's about your dissertation and your research and your interests and your motivations and your genius. It's not about anything else, right? And that's why in my What is Philosophy video, the scene where the master says to the apprentice, to be like me is to deny who you are. And to deny who you are is to deny the most apparent truth that you will ever know. How could you deny who you are for the mass, right? That's straight out of Nietzsche, right? To be like me, to want to be like Dr. Jason J. Campbell, use it in order to guide you, like Ian Mathwis did. It was absolutely genius, right? I loved it. He starts off the video. Shout out to Ian Mathwis. Ian Mathwis starts off the video. He goes, "Hi, I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell. Thanks for watching my video." And then he goes, no, of course I'm not. You know, I'm Ian, and here's what I do. And he said he's the sorcerer of mathematics, right? So Ian recognizes that there's been a template put out there. Hi, I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell, blah, 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 blah. Ian, he copies that template, right? But then he transforms it and he makes it his own, right? And now he's giving back information to me. Now I'm lecturing to you, giving you back information that Ian said. It's just, you know, this is the system, right? The system has been designed. My system, this system has been designed to do just that, so that you can see the process, you can replicate it, make it your own, and then impact me. I can take that and give it back to more people, right? So that it just becomes this sort of very fluid dissemination of different points of view. So greater, stronger, more powerful, profound power requires no amplification at all, right? There's no need to amplify power when when that power is rooted in individual identity, right? When the individual is secure in his or her being who it is that I am, then I don't need to do all the bells and whistles, right? There's no reason for me to try and be something that I'm not, because it's not about how I look. It's not about my appearance. It's not about talking a certain way or acting a certain way. I recognize that people who look at me just based on the physical appearance, beat it up, tat it up, however, and make comments based on the physical appearance, well, you're part of the masses. You're part of the herd. You showed yourself by making that comment, right? It's not about me. The body is just a conduit for the info. What you want to get to is what I have, and make that your own, right? There's no need for me to amplify the power, right? And again, Pipla Pippo's great point about, part of it I think was borrowed from Zizek. Zizek makes this point where he says, when you give the look, like you're in trouble, to your kid, you don't need to strike your child. The child recognizes the power that you have, insofar as you have that look. If you have to strike your child in order to legitimize that power, and then he gave the example of Gaddafi, which I thought was ridiculous. It was amazing. Then you become a clown. It becomes an act of buffoonery, which is absolutely true, right? Thus, power is a means of acting in the world, right? Obviously, power is a means of acting in the world. I could have not read Freer and kept all of the knowledge in my head and said, I'm not going to spend all of my free time making lectures for the Globe for free. I said, I got a ton of stuff in my head, and I have so much more. I wish I could just like expedite this and get it all out. I have so much more. But I have a lot of stuff in my head, and I'm trying to get it out as fast as possible so that you can have a lot of stuff in your head. And I would appreciate it if you did the same. So shout out to everybody who's made video responses for the call to video contributions, because you're taking this process and making it your own. And in making your own, you're educating people. You don't think you're educating people, but you're educating people. You're educating me, and I know this stuff, right? So, you know, this is what it's all about, sharing information. Thus, power is a means of acting in the world. It produces advantages. This is note 315. War becomes a means of enforcing virtue or retaliating against imposition. When the herd is threatened, the pack selects a target, right? And if we are talking about the pack as sort of moral or communal moralism, communal morality, then you ought not to attack the pack because there's strength in numbers, right? Much less if you're just one individual. I mean, the institution of religion was regimented. It was very structured and systematic. Nietzsche went in and bulldozed it from the ground up. The whole point is war, destruction, figuratively, literally. Real violence in the street or intellectual domination it's inextricable. There's no escaping it. And people who think that you can go about doing this business, without at least addressing intellectual domination or violence, it's ridiculous. Even if you take a pacifist stance, your pacifist stance is referenced, is identified in terms of the lack of domination. If you take a stance from misology, then your stance is a lack of intellectual domination, right? It becomes this anti-intellectual. And that's what the charlatan does, right? The charlatan creates ideological systems of control just to control people. And what we, the rationalists, do is say, don't you see you're being controlled? Here's how you legitimize your identity. Here's how you rage against the machine. You can take that idea and do real violence in the world to fight against those who are literally controlling you. Social upheaval, revolution, and so on. You can take that idea intellectually and hit the books and take their systems of thought and their ideologies and deconstruct their ideologies and show the logical inconsistencies, which is what I do. So whether you are a social activist or you are an intellectual activist, you dominate with your ideas, we're doing exactly the same thing, right? You cannot have one without the other. Social activism is informed by intellectual activism, by the domination of intellectual thought, and vice versa. Man on the street experiencing social activist movements comes back to the lab, quote unquote, and recognizes the paradigms that govern the activism as such, right? So communal morality then is defined by this collective weakness, right? There's this individual weakness, but as a collective, the herd becomes strengthened. And the inability to affect change within the environment without manipulation and influence of virtue, right? Virtue becomes the conduit with which change is procured. Change as in a Pythagorean sense, not just change as far as we're changing political systems or we're changing X. Change in really the pre-Socratic sense of change as the conduit for the new, right? Change is new, right? The process of transforming the paradigm is itself this ceaseless attempt to redefine the new, which again is why Pipla Pippo's point on the new avant-garde work of art transforming the canon, right? Insofar as the canon is now interpreted with respect to the new piece, overlaps perfectly with morality. What Nietzsche is doing, we haven't seen the construction yet, we're still in deconstruction, but what Nietzsche is doing is deconstructing the original paradigm, right, of religion as the institution of virtue. He's going to collapse the institution if it hasn't already been collapsed. For me, it's already been collapsed. It was collapsed in Note 170 for me, which is why I offered the call. I never got any responses though. So he collapsed the institution for me in 170 up until that point. Now it's just, he's beating a dead horse. And then what he'll do is he'll erect a new system, in scare quotes, but he's not a German idealist, so his system isn't really a system, it's more flexible, it's more organic, it's more biological. And we'll see what that is in a bit, right? So the question then becomes, how is it that we recognize the system of conformity, right? The whole point is social order and organization is necessitated by conformity, right? You can't have social order without conformity, right? And how is it that we go about this process?